got a challenge for you. I'm not really a massive fan of the whole resolutions list and setting all your goals for the whole new year and all the rest of it, but I did think it'd be quite fun to issue this little challenge. And I'm calling it, and just bear with me on this, I'm calling it the 2025 Green Eggs and Ham Challenge. Are you up for it? You need to know what it is, don't you? So keep listening. Welcome to the first slightly refreshed episode of Self-Belief Unsquashed of 2025. And part of me is thinking, do I carry on doing this podcast? And the other part is saying, yes, but you need the mojo to do it. So just sparkle it up a little bit. And that's what I'm doing. So see how you feel about this short and sweet episode of Self-Belief Unsquashed. This challenge is very, very simple. It is about doing something that is slightly scary. This is not a new idea. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who suggested do one thing every day that scares you. However, I'm making it a load simpler than that because I'm saying do one thing this year that scares you. The point being that you really don't know that you're not going to be able to do something, that you're not going to like something. You don't know until you try, do you? I mean, that's kind of obvious, and yet we make this mistake over and over again. We just kind of close our minds to things that we don't think within our capability or that we just don't think we're going to like. Now, I'm not saying you've got to go out and do lots of things that you really, really clearly are not going to like. I'm just saying, are you sure you're not going to like it? So I was inspired to name this challenge, rather unusually, the Green Eggs and Ham Challenge, after Dr. Seuss. Now, in my childhood, The Cat in the Hat was a fairly well-read, and I think it was on television as well, story. But also Dr. Seuss did loads of other children's stories. I say children's, they were a little bit wacky, actually, and the illustrations were quite spooky at times, but very, very interesting in terms of some of the life lessons that are held within these crazy, eccentric stories of cats and other furry animals. I might not have actually spotted this life lesson when I read his stories as a kid, but I definitely spotted it when I reread it recently. And let me just take you into this story, which is called Green Eggs and Ham, written by Dr. Seuss. So when Sam I Am, that's the name of one of the characters, furry thing, offers Guy Am I, another furry character, a plate of green eggs and ham, the response is an unequivocal no. Guy Am I says no. He turns up his furry nose and raises his paw in firm rejection. I do not like them, he says to Sam Am I. I do not like green eggs and ham. That's it. End of. Nothing you can do is going to persuade me to eat any of those green eggs and ham, he's basically saying. At which point, Sam, this little furry character who's very energetic, goes into a load of different options to try and persuade Guy to eat this strange food that he's never tried before. You know, you could do it here, there, you could do it with these people, with those people, underwater, on a hill, you name it. He gives all these, and of course it all rhymes because it's Dr. Seuss and it's brilliant. And every time the reply is, no, 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 I do not like them. And eventually, Guy just is absolutely blitzed by this constant nagging from Sam, and a little bit like we give in to maybe a toddler, even when we shouldn't perhaps, who is just going, please, 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 can I? Guy decides to relent and says, oh, for goodness sakes, okay, I'll give it a go. I think you can almost guess what happens next. That's it. He absolutely loves this strange green food. And more than that, he is incredibly grateful to his little furry friend, Sam I Am, for having persisted and therefore introducing him to this whole new wonderful taste that he will now eat anywhere, he says. It's a lovely story, but there's more to it than that, isn't there? Because that is a lesson for life. If we just put our hands up and say no to things that we just assume we're not going to like, or maybe we're a bit fearful that we're not going to be able to do, or maybe we'll make ourselves look stupid if we do them, or they're just a bit scary, or they don't seem to fit with our identity. If we just say no, we will never know. And I can give you a few examples of things that happened during the year that we've just had, 2024, which I think speak to this. Climbing. I will frequently, by the way, as these podcasts continue, be making little stories out of my climbing hobby because there's so much in it that is about just human stuff, about life. You don't have to go climbing. Well, they might, I recommend that you try it in 2025. But anyway, climbing. I would not have got this fabulous new hobby that now takes up quite a lot of my life and gives me huge amount of pleasure had I not stepped into a very unknown and scary place. I never thought of myself as a particularly sporty person, let alone a climber, for goodness sakes. You know, I was the kid that came last on all the sports day races and got picked last for the netball team and, you know, all of those things. I'm sure I'm not alone. I love dancing, but not professionally. I just like freestyle, disco dancing. And I have a background as an actor. So it's not like I've not done crazy things. To some people, going and standing on a stage would be this scary thing. But to me, the idea of climbing was scary. And I was at the climbing wall one day with my climber husband. I was simply going to learn how to hold the rope at the base. It's called belaying. I thought that would be nice because then I could support my husband and he could go more often to the indoor climbing wall. And there we were. And I thought, I wonder what it would feel like just to go up a few of these little coloured holes on this, you know, very, very easy route at the climbing wall. And I did. I got a few up and I was saying to my partner, no, Dad, let me down now. Oh, that's enough. And he very cleverly just sort of remained quite quiet and said, oh, if you like. And then I thought that little competitive thing came into my head and I thought, you go a bit higher. I mean, I'm on a rope. Nothing terrible was going to happen. I went a bit higher and eventually I got to the top. Can I just say the rest is history? I now go twice a week, every week. We've been on road trips where we've explored whole new climbing walls in cities like Edinburgh and all over the place. So I would not be having this life now with all of that joy in it and all of these increased muscles, I might add, had I not stepped into the unknown, had I not stopped saying to myself, no, that's not the kind of thing I do. No, I'm not going to be any good at that. And just stayed at the bottom. Then there's another little example. It's about making friends. I'm not a wildly sociable person. I'm not unsociable, but I tend to sort of prefer one-on-one conversations or, you know, I've got a lovely community on places like LinkedIn and I'm not a loner, but I'm not looking for lots and lots of social events. But there was this sort of little group of people, a woman and man, and sometimes her daughter, that used to go to the same cafe. Well, they still do go to the same cafe that we go to as a regular treat every week. And we sort of got to that stage where we were just smiling and maybe saying hi. But it went no further. And in fact, I started to make up all sorts of stories about their life. And I was thinking, why do they arrive at separate times? Perhaps they're not actually married. Perhaps they're just friendly because their daughter. And of course, all of that turned out to be absolute rubbish. It was because one of them went to walk the dog and the other one arrived later. But anyway, that's assumptions for you. And I was making up those assumptions, including I don't expect they want to be bothered with a stranger just coming up and having conversations with them. They're enjoying their breakfast quietly. We'll have our breakfast quietly. I don't want to make it any more than that. But after about 2 years, we just edged over. I just started saying a bit more than hello. And then one day I was reading a book because my husband was actually away and I was there on my own. And the woman was really interested in what I was reading. And we started a conversation. And from there on in, we realized how much we had in common, including our sense of humor and our interests and things about our background. And we arranged to have a coffee, just the two of us. It was official. And we've had a few since. And I would now count this person as a friend, and a very exciting new friend to have, because when you get to my age, it would be easy just to say, well, I've got this friend and that friend, and I'm perfectly happy. And, I don't need any more. And no, I stepped into the unknown and carefully, just delicately started this new friendship. And it's a great new adventure, as I say. I could go on with many other stories like this, but the point remains, you don't know until you try. There are 1,000 quotes on this topic. You don't discover new lands unless you leave the shore, or, that's a sort of bastardized quote, but you know what I mean. And I just think, yeah. And I'm in my late 60s, and I don't intend to stop putting these little unknowns into my world and making them known. So for 2025, I am taking up the challenge, the green eggs and ham challenge, as I'm calling it, by developing my skills in lead climbing, which is a whole nother thing, because although you're on a rope, you are clipping as you go, which makes it just a little bit more scary because the rope isn't above you as you go up. And yeah, I know I can do it. Good grief, of course I can do it. So that is my challenge. It's a bit scary, but I'm going to go for it, because I won't know if I can do it until I try. And that is it. I challenge you to think of that one thing that you perhaps have made an assumption about, perhaps have written off, perhaps have never even considered. Perhaps you are slightly scared in case you're no good at it, but what does that matter? If you're no good at it, you're no good at it, but you never know, do you? So take it up, take this challenge up. If you can communicate with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever you find me and let me know what you're going to do and send me photos if you've done it, then that would be brilliant. I will, of course, now have to send you photos of me doing the clipping thing on the climbing wall. Have fun and happy New Year. Stay curious and unsquashed.